I think they're all here. I think even the ones that. Oh wait, no, there's one in the
This
pond
little
to the right.
plant root comes out this way. It's like a crack stone. It's stirring them out. They would be underneath that. Crab just stirring.
And if you look in there on that white
You know,
pipe,
we're allowed to go up to the next level. I'm going.
Well, while everybody's still walking on up, just want to point out, because this is just so cute, our baby green herons right here in the tree. They're super cute. See the fledglings? They're so cute until they fall in an alligator's mouth. They are nesting over 15 large carnivores. But we do get these green herons that nest in these trees every year because the normal predators that would climb the tree to eat them won't do it in here. So that's why we have the herons nesting every year. We actually have a nest over there, but all the babies have already fledged. In fact, they just fledged last week because I don't see any babies in there, unless they all fell. So people that tell you that alligators can't learn,
They lied.
like they don't know that the lunch lady's got a bucket of food for them right now. So this is actually what we call station training. And this helps, you know, anytime you're dealing with animals, especially animals, you go to zoos that you cannot get into the enclosure with. Hey, the rumble is begun. Okay, and now the vulture's flying. We have a whole little ecosystem.
He's so cute. I love vultures.
All right. So once again, so this is basically called station training. And what that does is it helps keepers when you're dealing with animals that you cannot go in with. You go to a zoo and you see bear and, you know, monkeys and large cats. You don't get in the enclosures with those animals. So if you have them on a system where they know to go back into their sleeping houses on a queue, like you go to another zoo, you look back and you start looking for sleeping house doors, and you'll see in the back a little door that we can open as keepers. The animal's trained to go in there, and that's where they get their medications. That's where you can separate animals if someone needs to eat something different than another one, and it helps. And then that way we can get into the patients. Anytime the vet needs to come in and do any kind of medical checkups, what those look like back there are usually little rooms where the animal's in a cage and a vet can get a tranquilizer gun right up to them if they need to. So that just helps us with animal care. All right, well these are American alligators, and usually the big common question is how can you tell an alligator from a crocodile? So if you're just looking at the animal, look down, look down at an alligator's snout. An alligator's snout from the eyes to the nose stays wide. Now, if you go all the way to the back of the park, we have crocodiles back there. We have 2 Nile crocodiles together, and then we have 1 female by herself. Now, that's a different species, and I know she doesn't have a sign yet. This is her first summer out there with us, but she is a Siamese crocodile, which is critically endangered. But look at their snouts, and you'll see how their snouts will taper down at the nostril. So if you're just looking at the animal, that's the best way to tell the difference. But also remember that crocodiles are always tropical, so they live a lot closer to the equator. American alligators, their range goes actually up into North Carolina, and there are only 2 different kinds of alligators. Out of 23 different species of crocodilians, there's the American alligator, and then there's a Chinese alligator. And those are the species that can handle the colder weather. So in the wintertime, this winter, when we had 6 inches of snow in Charleston, which was incredible. I loved every second of it. They weren't so happy, but they were all in the ice with their noses sticking out of the ice, and they all did fine. Crocodiles, you can't do that with them. So you'll notice when you go back and you're looking at the crocodiles, they have like little tunnels that go into the barn. Those are their winter quarters. So that's kind of like their sleeping house. When we have to go in and clean with those 2 Niles, the male, King Tut, he goes in that house and that door is closed. Otherwise, there will be a lot of your blood in that yard because they are much more aggressive crocodiles than alligators are. So that's what we have to do with him. All right. Oh, Hayward's out today. So the smallest alligator in here is Hayward, way there on the edge of the pond there. And that's our first 11-year-old to kind of migrate over and live with the big guys. And Hayward was named after one of the owners. And then last year, we were like, yeah, Hayward's getting along really well with those big alligators.
Okay, I see.
And then Hayward comes over here last spring, fall and makes a beautiful nest and lays eggs. So Hayward has a little bit kind of a different name than what probably she should have, but that's why she was getting along with everybody so well. So I don't know which other ones are the females and which ones are the males. There's not a lot of sexual dimorphism with alligators, meaning you can't just look at the animal and see the difference. I know, I'm coming. All right. Alligators are carnivores, strict carnivores. No vegetarian options here. So I've got fish, I've got chicken for them today. I give them fish, I give them rats. I have deer meat if it's available to give, we'll give them that. But they are usually pretty generalist eaters too. So alligators eat according to their size. So a baby alligator is only going to eat tiny little tadpoles, minnows, bugs. The bigger they get, the bigger their prey gets. When they get it as big as Hayward, even a little bit smaller than that, they're going to start eating all the animals that used to eat them when they were little babies. Once they get that big, the only natural predator an alligator has is another one. And then, of course, us, because, we always mess everything up that way. We almost completely extirpated alligators in the 40s. Almost killed off all the millions of alligators that were here. So they were actually put on the endangered species list before it was a law. And they actually, they came back. We took them off in 1987. So it does work. So make sure we keep the ESA around. And this is one of the first success stories off of that. Now they're monitored by the government now. So sometimes people will ask us if we get any rescue alligators. Very, 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 very rarely. We had one rescue alligator a few years ago named Fluffy. Don't ask me why. But DNR regulated all of that. So anytime an alligator is being dealt with, DNR does all the laws and regulations about that. I couldn't tell you which one Fluffy is, but apparently Fluffy is kind of a cool story. Fluffy apparently was washed up on Edisto Beach. And probably something happened to the alligator, and why it got washed in the ocean initially, I don't know. But by the time they found it, and who knows how long it was in the ocean, because when they found her on the beach, apparently it looked horrible. She just emaciated. And an alligator, it takes a long time for them to look like that. So anyways, I guess everybody down there just kind of rallied together, and they wanted to save this alligator. So they were calling people and trying to figure out what to do with it, and of course we were called. And meanwhile, one of the ambulance drivers and one of the ambulances on Edisto Island drove the ambulance onto the beach so that they could park the truck and put the alligator in the shade and just help it, until they decided what to do. Well, they finally decided that we could take Fluffy. Well, apparently the story, and I met the guy last year, and he's great. He looks to me, just looks just like Santa Claus. So they were trying to figure out how to get the alligator here. And apparently the man was told, if you put that alligator in the ambulance, you will be suspended. But that's how Fluffy got here. So, I love that. So he did sacrifice 3 of his days' pay, and I can't even tell you which one it is. So Fluffy made a full recovery from that. They are finding with all the research that there's actually an antibiotic quality in alligator blood. They've done research on these, and they've done control groups, and they've given these animals diseases and viruses that we carry, and they fight every single one of them off, including HIV. So that's why, alligators are so long-lived. Besides the fact that they don't have any big natural predators out in the wild, this is our largest freshwater predator in North America, but they have that going for them too. All right, so there is a dominance, there is a hierarchy in here. That one in the water, that's Water Dog. That's our boss. All right, and before I start throwing this chicken, we need to give you a little side note on the vultures. These are black vultures. Turkey vultures are the ones with the red head. Couple things about the birds. Don't ever knock a vulture. They keep a lot of disease and parasite off this earth because they eat carrion. Eating carrion, and I've read this about vultures, makes them not the tastiest choice of prey when you eat dead things all the time. Well, the vultures have found out about 10 years ago, apparently, that at 12 o'clock at the bull platform and at 4 o'clock here, we have the best dead food around. So they show up for it. Just like the alligators, when everybody started lining up here, they're like, okay, lunch lady's coming. So they all start going to the platform, and they've learned it too. Vultures are the birds that have the good sense of smell. Any other bird does not. So doing wildlife rehabilitation for a long time, remember that, people might try to tell you if you find a baby bird, you can't put it back in the nest because the mama's going to smell you and not take care of it. Baloney. It's baloney. Get that baby bird off the ground and get it back in the nest where the mama can take care of it. She will have the birds like this. These are the ones that smell. And they're going to smell dead food and come all, I don't know how many barks we have here. They started calling the bird Bart when it first started showing up. And now we have like 40 that roost here. So I don't know how many we have. They will probably fly down here in a second when I start throwing chicken. And you'd be amazed at how close they get to these alligators and grab chicken almost directly out of their mouth. And people are just amazed. They're like, they're not going to eat the, well, like I said, they're not the tastiest choice of prey. But I also want you to realize when you look at our alligators, we do not have one single solitary skinny alligator here. They have not missed a meal since they got here in 1999. So it may not seem like all the alligators are going to get a lot of food, but remember when I feed them a bucket of chicken, these alligators are getting fed at 4 o'clock every day all summer long. So they are not missing any meals. Now, when the temperature starts to drop, they'll stop eating. So right around the end of like September, beginning of October, depending how the weather holds out for us. Usually by about mid-October though. It doesn't matter how much food you throw at them, they're done. Because once their body temperature drops, they can't digest any food. So I wish I could do that, like 6 months, just close up the kitchen and just never go in. But I'm not a reptile. Keep in mind, this is cold-blooded. So when they eat, their food isn't being used to keep their bodies at 98.7 degrees. You'll notice when you're walking around the Serpentarium, when you work with reptiles, there's not a very high energy level here, on behalf of the reptiles anyways. So they just don't burn off the calories that we do, and that's why they manage to sustain the food a lot longer. All right, let's start this fooding frenzy here. All right, guys. Hayward, you need one. You haven't had one in a while. All right, now they're not going to chew. They grab, they swallow whole. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. I know you were waiting for that. Oh, Bart. You're getting close. Don't put the word in it. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. I kind of fell out of my hand before I threw. You want another one? There you go. You better get that before your friend does. That's a boy. Now they have 75 teeth sharp teeth in their mouth, and the sharp teeth they will pop out all the time. They're constantly growing sharp teeth and replacing them. So an alligator tooth isn't rooted. It kind of looks like an upside down ice cream cone. And so the new tooth underneath just pops the old one off, and you'll find them in here. If I look down here, I can usually find a couple. But they'll do that about 3,000 times in their lifetime. They're constantly shedding and replacing teeth. They're also very loud. They're very vocal animals. So I was on my show earlier today, and I thought I heard an alligator start to bellow. If you've ever heard it, it's really cool. It kind of sounds like you're trying to start up a weed eater and it won't start, only a lot louder and a lot cooler. Sometimes, I think what had happened with all the construction that's going on, sometimes that starts them up. It sounds like there's another gator out there. If a lot of Harley Davidsons go by, sometimes that gets them all jazzed up and they'll start going. But they're very vocal, they communicate a lot. The males and females both bellow, and what they do is they bring their heads and tails up. If they're in the water, it's kind of cool because all the vibrations look like the water's just boiling around their shoulders. And they suck in air and they bellow. And once these guys go, then the 11s go. Then the bulls in the back go. And they just kind of get each other all worked up. We think these alligators are anywhere between 30 and 45. There's kind of a difference in age here. But the bulls in the back, we just call them the bulls because they're our biggest boys. That's the boys club back there. No girls allowed back there. And we think that they are between 50 and 60. Probably weigh around 600 pounds apiece. So these alligators stay here winter and summer, nice weather, and through hurricanes. They've done great. So remember, we have a block wall behind here. We're on the marsh. The last hurricane that came through, though, was after nesting season. So the female, the Hayward, and then the dominant female were over there sitting on nests. Well, the water came in, and we had a lot of water the last hurricane. The water levels rose all the way up to that small turtle yard right there. The tortoises were inside, but it flooded the eggs. When they make a nest, alligators will make a nest mound. So when they put a bunch of rotting compost in a pile, that makes heat. And that's how the eggs are incubated. She stays with the nest purely for protection. That's it. Because everything loves to eat eggs. They're delicious. So you've got a lot of predation on eggs. There's flooding, and the eggs aren't always fertile. So out in the wild, when they make a nest, there's usually around 40 eggs in a nest, and typically about 15 will make it through and hatch. after 56 to 65 days of incubation. And once again, mama sits right there. She'll hear them. When they start hatching, babies will make this little barking noise, and mama will dig them out, she'll get them in her mouth, and she'll take them to the water. Now, the babies and sisters together are called a pod, and they usually stay with mom for a few years, usually 3 or 4 years, because when your mama is a 300-pound alligator, you don't get better protection than that, because they're hatched out precocially. They're hatched out, they have all their teeth, they know exactly how to eat, they know how to find food. You know, they could be fine on their own. You know, they don't need their moms and dads for 30, 40 years like we do. So, but they stick with mama for that protection. If those babies hatch in here, daddies, apparently baby alligators taste like chicken McNuggets and everything loves them. So we have to get them out. The female Nile crocodile in the back is nesting. In case anybody hasn't heard that yet, I'm not sure. I think I told everybody in my last snake show. But just please keep that in mind when you're back there. If you're at the Niles, she is sitting right next to the fence. I don't know why she nested there, but I am asking people to kind of give her some space. Don't like crowd over her cage and try to look over in it. She's very protective of that nest. So I'm trying to give her just a little bit of space.
Where do you send the babies?
The babies go on to other facilities and breeders. We only had 2 babies hatch last year. She laid 41 eggs. And they're just now big enough that I feel like it's okay that they can move without being too stressed and still survive. They're not on display. If you want to see baby pictures, I have lots. All right, guys.
Do you send alligator babies out too?
Alligators, the babies that have hatched here the last couple of years, we've cut. So that's what the baby gator display is inside. All right, guys. One more round. I know you're ready. You're always ready. Yep. There we go.
This is funny.
Oh, here you go. Don't get his foot.
There you go.
So, the ridgy plates down their back, those are, this bird gets more food than you could ever care to imagine. So don't worry about the birds. They're well fed too. So the bony ridges down their back going down the length, those are called osteoderms. So those are bony plates under the skin that not only gives them protection when they're young, but it also acts as kind of a little solar panel, helps them to thermoregulate. Their nostrils, they'll close up underneath the water. Their ears are little slits right behind their eyes. Alligators have a palatal valve too. All crocodilians do. And so basically it's just a fancy name for a throat flap. If that alligator is underneath the water and hunting underneath the water and they open their mouth up, instantly that throat flap closes. So when they get stuff in their mouth and close their mouth, when they open their mouth up underneath, close their mouth underneath the water, that valve will open up and they can eat underneath the water. They can sit underneath the water for hours. They can slow their heart rate down to about 2 beats a minute. And basically how that happens is that they have a 4-chambered heart, just like we do. Most lizards have a 3-chambered heart. They can actually shunt all the oxygenated blood to more important parts of their body. So if they're underneath the water and they're breathing so slow, their respiration is so slow, the oxygenated blood is going to like their heart and their lungs and not the kidney or the stomach where it's not needed. All right, so the longer I'm up here, the more food they think they're going to get. That was peak excitement for the day. That's the most excitement you're going to see out of our alligators. You just saw it right there. So I'm going to go ahead and leave. I've got it. If you missed the earlier snake show, we've got one last snake show coming up at 5 o'clock. So if you want to meet me at the stage area at 5, we'll do one last snake show for the day. And if you have any questions, you can always stop me anytime.
Okay.
Thanks for coming. Have a good afternoon.
All right.